All right, so let's begin the show. And the first part of the show will be dedicated to a very important topic, and that is how do you grow your money in short term? Do you think for short term, or do you believe, or do you want to park in your money in fixed deposits or any other fixed income instrument as far as a short term duration is concerned? Let's talk about this, and let's just focus this conversation on fixed deposits. I have with me Pankaj Matpal, MD, Optima Money Managers. Pankaj, good evening and welcome to the Money Show. So here we are where we have attractive fixed deposit rates. The debt mutual fund taxation has been changed and fixed deposits and debt mutual funds are at par. I want to focus this conversation from the point of view of a short-term parking investment, which obviously has lower risk. And fixed deposit is something that is on top of everyone's mind these days. What are the kind of interest rates we are talking about as far as a fixed deposit is concerned from banks, from NBFCs and from corporate fixed deposits also? Pankaj.
Good evening, Kavita. See, we have choices within the banks, like we have choice of public sector banks, then well-established private sector banks, and small finance banks are there, which offer little higher interest rate compared to private banks, means commercial banks and public sector banks. Then, as you mentioned, NBFC deposits, which also offer interest rate little higher than bank fixed deposit, but these come with their pros and cons. So let's start with the public sector bank because these can be considered the safest choice. But interest rate, it varies from means how much amount you want to invest below 2 crore or more than 2 crore rupees. But obviously, we are talking here for the short term. Then if you talk about retail investment, so below 2 crore rupees and from 7 days and at a longer period you can invest. So longer the investment horizon, interest rate may be a little higher. For a shorter period, interest rate may be lower, but it depends between 3 to 3.5% to something like 7% you can expect. And it also varies from one bank to another bank. So depending on tenure and from one bank to another bank, the rates may differ from one to another. Second thing, another choice, like I mentioned, private sector banks like ICICI or SDFC, Kotak, Axis Bank, which are well-established private sector banks, you can park your money in their fixed deposits, and interest rates are almost at par with the public sector banks, but sometimes it may be a little higher with few basis points. But small finance banks like AU Small Finance Bank or Jana Small Finance Banks, that is another category of banks which are again means licensed by RBI. So here you can expect little higher, up to 9% interest rate can be expected when you park your money, when you deposit your money with these small finance banks. Now the most important thing is risk. See, when we deposit our money with public sector bank or well-established private sector bank, the safety is higher. But when you go for cooperative banks or small finance bank, it still means concerns are there regarding safety. But as we are aware that up to 5 lakh deposit in one bank is insured by DICGC, Deposit Insurance and Credit Guarantee Corporation. So one should take benefit of that you should deposit up to 5 lakh in one bank, and preferably one should go for public sector and private sector banks. But if you take a little bit higher risk, then you can consider a small finance bank. Cooperative banks somehow I will not advise because we have seen, we have experienced something like in past few years where many banks, their license were cancelled by RBI. So small finance bank can be considered. And after that, as you mentioned, NBFCs.
Exactly. So one has to really analyze and assess the safety part of parking their money in fixed deposit. Either you want to go for a corporate fixed deposit, NBFC, or even bank FDs where your money is insured. But then let's also talk about the net interest that you will be gaining. Right now, the rates are very attractive, 7 and 7.5%, etc. But then what is the net revenue or net profit that you can earn from a fixed deposit?
See, Kavita, on a fixed deposit, you pay tax on the accrual basis. So, for example, if you are going for a fixed deposit, which is, say, more than 1 year duration or maturity, but whatever interest is accumulated in 1 year, interest tax will be applicable on that. So when we say on the accrual basis, tax is applicable. So suppose you are getting 7% and you are in, because tax on bank interest is applicable at the slab rate. So if you are in 30% tax bracket, it means you are paying 30% tax on that interest, and 4% health and education cess is also applicable. So when we say 30% and 4% cess on that tax, so it comes to 31.20%. So you can imagine if you are getting 7% and 31.20% goes out of that, so you get less than 4% in hand. So that is another thing. When you deposit in your money in fixed deposit and pay tax on that, net in hand is very less. And we are taking example of 7%, but not every time you'll get 7%. As I mentioned earlier, if your maturity is say 6 months, 1 year, so rate of interest will be something like 4% or 4.5%. This 7% is only applicable when the maturity is say 3 years, 4 years, something like this.
All right, let's also talk about senior citizens and the kind of benefit they can get from a fixed deposit by parking their money right now, because there are special fixed deposit schemes which a lot of banks have also launched as far as senior citizens parking their money is concerned. Also, when we talk about short duration, Pankaj, the short duration we are talking till 3 years or maybe less than that, because we are still not in a scenario where we will see any cut in interest rates.
No, here means not like mutual fund. When we talk about fixed deposit, it may be as short as 7 days. So when we are talking about the short duration here, my purpose of explaining this is something like within 1 year. Means you want to park your money for few days to few months. And in rare case, because I will not advise somebody to park their money in fixed deposit if your investment horizon is longer, because then you have more choices like debt oriented mutual funds. Though tax rates are same, still I'll say that those score over fixed deposit. But here we are talking about the like few months to something like 1 year or something like this. But yes, if somebody wants to deposit or keep money in fixed deposit only for a longer period also, choices are available here. And for senior citizens, almost all banks, or I'll say all banks or NBFCs, they pay little extra interest. So usually 50 basis point, or you say 0.50% additional interest is paid to the senior citizens. And for senior citizens, there are some specific FDs, like for example, in SBI, Amrit Kalash is one deposit scheme where senior citizens get 7.60% interest. And if you see effective, because the interest is here compounded quarterly. So if you see annual interest rate, that comes to something 7.82%. So, so depositor can take benefit of that. And apart from that, for senior citizen, as post office schemes are available, or senior citizen savings scheme, which is available at post office as well as in public sector banks and in some selected private sector bank. So if your investment horizon is 5 years, you can consider even that senior citizen savings scheme, because rate of interest is 8.20%, which is more attractive.
All right, so this was all about parking your money for short term as far as fixed deposit options are concerned. But Pankaj, we really have to move on to the other part of the show, which is doing our viewers financial planning.